What's going on, everybody? We are live on Instagram, X, and YouTube. The Game Time Podcast, Game Time Live. We are live here today with the associate head coach of Oral Roberts. We are here with Kory Alford. It's going to be a great show. Kory, first off, I want to welcome you to the Game Time Podcast. We appreciate you joining. This has been an interview that's been in the works for a while. We originally had it for July, but I was like, you know what? That's going to be right in the middle of football season. I wanted to get you around basketball season, so I'm really excited to have you on today.
I appreciate it. Been looking forward to it. I know we've been talking about it for a while, but appreciate you having me on. You guys are doing great work. I've enjoyed watching some of your interviews you've had.
Appreciate it. Thank you. And then, of course, to fill in, originally he was supposed to fill in for Daryl, who was able to make it today, but we've got Billy D of Cascade Hoops Talk. He was actually one of our first interviews here on the podcast. Billy, it is great to have you back on. If you can, real quick, kind of tell our viewers, because it's been a while since you've been on, what Cascade Hoops Talk is all about real quick.
Well, first I want to say I'm really honored that you asked me to fill in. I'm honored. I'm surprised you asked me to come back.
You're the first person I thought of, so you're good.
I do Cascade Hoops Talk. It's a show. It's dedicated to NAI basketball, primarily in the preseason, and during the season we do as many coach interviews as we can. Little plug for the show. We've already done 42 coaches and we haven't played a game yet. If you want to know anything about NAI coaches, it's a show to go to. And then during the season, Monday through Friday, we do a show every morning that highlights what happened in the top 25 and in the conferences the night before. I love the conference races. That's when basketball really starts. And we update everybody on those every morning along with the top 25.
Awesome. And then the man of the hour got home about 2 hours ago. Daryl, great to have you on. I was wondering, you were like, just landed. We'll see. And I was like, all right, we'll see what happens. But Daryl, it is great to have you on. Obviously, no Ramon today. It is all good. You guys will see Ramon at some point, but it's going to be a great interview. I will let our fill-in co-host, Billy D, start us off with the first question. I'm going to edit the YouTube thumbnail and stuff. Billy, you can go first, though.
So, hey, Kory, it's great to talk to you again. Last time I talked to you, you were over at Huntington. You were able to build a powerhouse there in the Crossroads. You're well respected in the area. It was back home. What brought you back to D1? Why was this the right place? Why Oral Roberts? Why was this the right time?
Yeah, I think I guess for one, starting with the Huntington piece. That place was incredible for me and my family, and I was extremely happy coaching there. Like, it was not a situation that I wasn't interviewing for jobs. I wasn't interested in jobs, whether it was small school or Division I. I was very much content and excited about the future we were building there. Sometimes in coaching, though, you don't know where life is going to take you, and Tulsa is a place that I had never been. Oral Roberts is a school that I knew of through following college basketball. But really, it was as our season ended, Coach Barnett and we talked every week for the last, 10 years. And we worked together. But as I went to Huntington and he had stayed at Nevada and then went to West Virginia, we continued to stay in touch. We constantly were just talking basketball. And his opportunity to come out to Oral Roberts started getting down the line as his interview process kept going. And we had those conversations of, hey, if I get this job, will you come with me? And that's when you start doing a little bit of the pros and cons list. Like, if this happens, what does it look like? Me and my wife talked at length about it. I have a 2-year-old son. And so all of that kind of goes into it. Like, is this something that makes sense timing wise for us as a family? And then for me in my career, and I had built something at Huntington that I was extremely proud of, and we were excited about where we had gotten the program to. At the same time, there was a lot of pros to this kind of situation. One, it's a job that I had never done before. I had been a low-level staff member, assistant at the Division I level, and then obviously got to be the head coach at an NAIA school, but had never been really the top assistant or associate head coach that I'm kind of doing now. And there's a lot of challenges in that, and really areas for growth. that I have been excited about, and it's already kind of paid off for me. But from the recruiting side of things, it's a lot different from what I was doing when I was at UCLA in Nevada. And another piece of that too is just being able to hone in on the basketball side of things. The last 5 years as a head coach, and it's the reason why I wanted to do it, I've had to wear a million different hats. Coach Yak, who is now the head coach there at Huntington, Coach Strom, who was my top assistant before Coach Yak, he's now an ops guy at SEMO. But we had some other staff members that had helped throughout, but a lot of those were the only ones that I had full time. And so for like the last 2 years, it was Coach Yak and I doing everything, whether that is a fundraising event, you've got to run it start to finish, down to what are the table assignments, what getting all the silent auction items. You run a golf outing, you're running that whole thing. That's right. So you're wearing so many different hats throughout the year, whether it is fundraising, whether it is recruiting, whether it is alumni relations, on top of offense, defense, team culture, all those things that help you win games, but you are really wearing all the hats and trying to balance everything. And in that comes great experience. I think I learned a lot about myself and how to run a basketball program and how to do it at a high level. But there is a advantage to now being back at the Division I level of, yes, I'm not the head coach here, but we have 9 or 10 staff members that are under me now, including 4 GAs. And we have people in places that can help us run our program at a highly efficient level. And there's so many things that you just feel like when you have a shorter staff that it's hard, you have to pick and choose. And so I think there's benefits to both of those things. But I guess to answer, long story short, to your question, the time was right. And a really big piece of it was just Coach Barnett. I would not have taken this position with too many people. Had actually had this exact opportunity a couple times before at different places. And it was a very quick conversation with my wife on the pros and cons, and it just wasn't it. And this one, the more we talked about it, the more we went through it, and just who Coach Barnett is, one as a person, but one as a coach. It checked all the boxes for me and my family, and the timing was just right for it.
You know, real quick, it's really interesting you say that about, and then Coach Yak, when I talked to him after he got the job, he said the most valuable words that he heard from you as you left is, you're going to do far less basketball than you think you are. He said that's been the biggest surprise up to this point. So it kind of matches what you're saying.
Yeah, it's definitely true. And you guys talk a lot on here with some of the coaches you've had on, but you're always trying to balance the culture and the basketball side. But you really do, especially as a head coach, and it doesn't matter what level you are, Division I, Division II, NAIA, and I'm sure all the way down. Like you, as the head coach, you do get so much less time. Like when I was a video coordinator, it was all basketball, right? I was just on my computer and I'm watching basketball, and that's all I had to worry about. As you move up the totem pole, it becomes a lot more about the human aspect. And when you've got 15, 20-year-olds on your team, you got a lot of different stuff that comes your way that you've got to be ready for on top of running a program. And it is a business at the end of the day too. And so you've really got to have like a CEO mindset when you're trying to balance all the leadership aspects of running a basketball program. And because of that, you don't get as much time to scheme up cool ATO plays as you did when you were a video coordinator.
Daryl, you want to go?
Kory, my question, you've gone from California to Nevada, back home, Indiana. Now you're in Tulsa. What are some of the differences that you've seen in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that maybe you were expecting, and maybe some of those things you weren't, and how they impacted you in your new role as you go into this season?
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm super thankful and blessed to have been able to travel the country and live in so many different places. People always ask me, where is home? I don't have a good answer. I often say Albuquerque. It's where I went to high school. It's where my wife's family's from, and we go back regularly. But I really have moved all over. And I think being able to get immersed in different cultures, meet different people that are across all walks of life, different places in the country that have definitely changed my outlook and view on just the world. And so going from LA to Reno to Fort Wayne to Tulsa, I think it's big for me just being in some sort of a city, at least with some size. That's at least what I'm comfortable with. Love going out to good restaurants, finding good coffee shops. That's my wife and I's thing. But at the end of the day, the passion for sports is always different in different places too. I think Reno and Indiana were heavy basketball areas, especially the state of Indiana. There's nothing like that I've been a part of. You can have two random high schools playing on a Tuesday night, and the crowd in that high school gym is going to make no sense, but it is going to be loud. They're going to be high energy, and there's a passion for that sport in the state of Indiana that's like nothing else. And so that will be a different adjustment. Tulsa is a very football heavy focus, and we don't have football here at Oral Roberts, which I think is a pro for us in the long run, in the fact that we are the front porch. Us in baseball and women's basketball really are the front porch of the athletic department, the university. And so, but football is big down here in Oklahoma. A lot of OU football fans. Bixby High School right down the road is like top 5 nationally. They just won a game 95-0, I think. And so definitely a different high school sports and just fan landscape than what Indiana is. But hey, now the Cignetti's got the Hoosiers rolling. So I think that state may be increasing their football fandom for sure. But definitely. Yeah, Tulsa's been a great city, great people. Really enjoyed our summer here, and I'm excited to continue to meet new people and lay down our roots here.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you this from my perspective. Your lineage is as a Hoosier, so you're always welcome in the state of Indiana. That's, we'll always claim you as long as you do well, right? As long as you do well, we'll claim you. But no, the other part of that is this: growing up in that basketball type of a world, what was the biggest thing? And I know we kind of hit it a little bit. I want to ask, what was the biggest thing you took from your grandfather from a coaching perspective?
So it's funny you ask here. Actually, whenever we get off, he is going to be pulling up to the parking lot, and I'm going to show him around campus. He has not been out here. He had been waiting until the weather got a little bit better. And he was just with my brother. Actually lives in Oklahoma City now. He is an assistant for the Oklahoma City Thunder G League team, the Blue. Okay. And so he went down there, him and my grandma. They just spent the last 2 days down there, and now they're driving up here. So as soon as we get off, I'm showing the real Coach Alford around campus and around.
Yeah, there you go.
Tell him we said hello.
I definitely will. But there's so many lessons that I've learned from him. He is an insanely wise human being. But I think really we now have 3 generations of coaches in our family. Basketball has been the cornerstone of every conversation we ever have. It is what our family we've been blessed by the sport, but it's also just kind of, you talked about where we've gone and traveled to, and all of my relationships, friendships, all come from that sport. But I think if we're just talking strictly coaching and what he has taught me, my dad, my brother, all of us kind of through the line, I think it just starts with some of the foundational, just toughness, discipline. I think what he instilled in my dad as a player also just kind of has trickled down. And I think he also has a great understanding too of like what still is applicable to today's player. You can't coach the same way that you used to back when he coached, or back when Coach Knight coached, or even when my dad started out his career. But certain things foundationally, from a toughness, from a discipline, from a leadership, from a culture, even from defensive fundamentals to shooting technique, like things like that all still apply. You just have to meet the players at a different place. You have to meet them where they are. But my grandpa has a passion for the sport like none other. He still calls me about recruiting every week, maybe every other day. His second question when he gets in here today will be about recruits, I promise you. And this man should have no business still caring about recruiting, because recruiting is insane, but he loves it. He genuinely loves the game of basketball. And I think, honestly, if we're being just fully honest about what he instilled in me, it's the love for the game of basketball. Like, he has such a passion, and I don't think you can do this job very well, for one, but very long, if you don't have a insane love for the game of basketball, because it takes too much time. It takes too much time, and to be good at it, it takes an irrational passion and focus on a sport. And for us and our family, that's definitely been the way of life for us.
I like that. It's good. So basically what you're telling me is your granddad's a basketball junkie and he's never going to change. That's basically
That is definitely correct.
Good deal. Good deal. Pastor, you guys there.
Coach, I wanted to go back to Huntington, because obviously I've seen Huntington a good amount being at IU East, talking to Billy. I've gotten to learn more about the NAIA. And when you look at it, right, I think a great example right now is Coach Scott Moore and Grace playing Colorado today in that exhibition matchup. How much better in competition level has the NAIA? How much has it improved? With the transfer portal and all these different things. Because I mean, we've talked about it a lot on this podcast, where the transfer portal has been a positive and a negative. And I think one of those positives has just been, that talent that maybe is, that has fallen to the NAIA level has also made it better to where these NAIA teams are playing these Division I schools. When you were at Huntington, how much of that talent were you able to get maybe from a higher level that nowadays or back then you probably wouldn't have been able to get?
Absolutely. So it's a great question, and it is a topic with a lot of different aspects to the answer, because when I started as a head coach 5 years ago, it was interesting timing. You've got COVID, you've got transfer portal differences, and you've got NIL. And all of those things have created a completely different landscape across all levels of college basketball. Mm-hmm. And so everybody has always talked about get old and stay old, right? That was always the mantra for great college basketball programs. How do you develop talent? How do you keep them in your program? That still remains true, but it's completely changed because of the open transfer. You used to have to sit out for an entire year when you transferred. And you also used to only get 4 seasons of competition. And for the last 5 or 6 classes now, everybody has gotten 5 years. Yeah. And so because of that, it has created basically a market that has kept players in college longer, which is a great thing for college basketball. Because also the NIL has kept a lot of fringe guys that would have gone pro in college. So all of those factors at work have benefited the NAIA and D2, D3 levels as far as high school recruiting. I think it really benefits, like Lane Sparks, who I'm sure we'll talk about. He's transferred for his final year because of, again, new rules that allowed all players that played NAIA or JUCO in their career 1 final season. But Lane Sparks, to me, should have been a Division I player coming out of high school. But because of that market change has led to freshman spots being less, it's not valuable, but it's less, you don't take as many freshmen as you used to. You used to have to take 3, 4, 5, whatever you were needing to fill in. Yeah. Now, most schools are taking 1 or 2 because they know 1, freshmen aren't going to be ready to play for a minute. But also, as soon as you develop freshmen that are good enough, they're probably transferring up. And you have to just be old, and you can do that easily through the transfer portal. But I think, so it has helped the NAI and the smaller school levels from a high school standpoint, because guys that used to get recruited by low majors are now getting passed on, right? So that has helped. On the flip side, though, there has been a crazy amount of exposure to the NAI and D2 levels for guys transferring up. I think this year we'll have 12, maybe, Crossroads players playing Division I basketball. And that's crazy. We've got basically, if you played first team and you didn't graduate in the last 2 years and you were first team all Crossroads League, you're now at the Division I level. And it's a great thing, especially with NIL, that some of these guys are being able to capitalize on their earning potential and to be able to have that opportunity for their last year or last 2 years, depending on however it worked out. Like you mentioned, Elijah Malone, who Grace is playing at Colorado, like what he's been able to accomplish in his college basketball career is like a dream come true. He went to Grace, he played for his 3 years. He's got his degree now. He was National Player of the Year, and now got to finish his last 2 years in the Big 12 and gets to make really good money, right? Like that's a phenomenal situation. And those are the good stories of the new landscape, right? You've also got some guys that are always unhappy, and you end up at 5 different schools and maybe you never play, right? And so there's pros and cons to all of it. But I would say the NAIA basketball, to me, honestly, it stayed relatively steady. I think there's talent before, there's talent now. But I think you are seeing more talented freshmen enter the NAIA, at least at where I was at. And I think that'll continue to stay that way with the premium that people are putting on transfers. And I also think now that these programs are developing a track record for helping guys reach their next step, whatever that may be, if you have 5 years, I mean, it's hard to tell a kid like you're going to probably be here for 5 years if you really think they're like that. And so get them ready in the next 2 or 3 and then help them find their next spot, because at some point, like it's the same way for us here. At some point, there may be a time where a team comes in with a number that like you have no choice, but you need to go do that. Right. Yeah. And we feel strongly about the culture and the foundation that we're building, that we can be competitive in that space, but also that we can close the gap between the number. If there is a culture fit, if there is a program fit, and we feel like we can maximize your talent. But at the end of the day, the simple economics is like, if you are being offered an opportunity or a number value that is that much higher, you need to go and do that while you are 21 years old. If you have that opportunity, and the game of basketball has provided that for you.
Yeah, for sure. Billy, I want to give you the chance, because, you know, he mentioned the Crossroads and he's mentioned that conference. And one of those talking points is, you know, how big and how important the Crossroads Conference is in the NAIA. So I do want to give you a chance to kind of discuss that with Kory. So I'm going to hand you the floor real quick.
Yeah, I want to ask you a Crossroads question, and then I want to circle back to Lane Sparks and Ty Harper, who were NAIA players you have now. What was it like coaching in the Crossroads? You're coaching against just absolute legends, you know, guys like Steve Draben and Scott Moore, Greg Tonigal, some of the best coaches in the country, regardless of level. Talk about not only competing in the Crossroads, but coaching in the Crossroads.
Yeah, there's 2 main things that I'm super thankful for, and I already touched on the one of in my 5 years as a head coach, being able to run the whole program, balance all the hats, all of that was incredibly valuable. But the second piece that made me a much better coach than I was 5 years ago is what you just said, coaching in that league. I mean, it is every single night. You said it, legends, and I'm not going to start naming names because I'll leave somebody off.
Exactly. Yeah.
But to name a few that you just did, Coach Moore and Coach Tonigal, like what they've done in the past 10, 15 years. And for me as a basketball junkie, going into those games, preparing for those games and coaching in those games, and that chess match that you have back and forth with a coach that you really respect and know that it is going to be a fun environment and a high level X's and O's game. Like that's what we do this for. And it was a true honor to coach in the league. It was incredibly fun for us to go from where I think the first year we got picked 8th, finished 7th, and to be able to build up to where we were consistently winning 22, 23, 13 league games and make the national tournament. And we made 2 of those Crossroads tournament championships, and we couldn't get over the hump at Grace. But like those memories and those learning experiences for me were, I mean, they're priceless. Every one of those, IWU, Grace, Bethel, St. Francis, like those games feel like championship atmospheres, right?
Yeah.
They are every possession matters, and the high level skill in that league is second to none. It's such a perfect small school market with where we're at, with no D2s around, and you can just really recruit the state of Indiana. I'd say 80% of that league is from Indiana. But for me as a head coach, just looking back, how I improved every year as a coach, just as a whatever it is, tactician, leader, strategist, all the different things that you talk about for in-game coaching or developing a program. I owe a lot of that to the coaches in that league, because we're all highly competitive and you're trying to be better than the next guy, and all those guys push each other to be great. And the programs that they've built, you are constantly trying to emulate and then improve upon. And so incredibly thankful. I'll be a Crossroads League fan for my whole life. We'll definitely continue to follow all year this year. Also maybe to see who transfers, but following Crossroads League basketball just because it is fun basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to circle. Go ahead, Isaiah.
No, I was just gonna say, I remember when Grace came to IU East, and that game was just super close. And you know that conference is legit. Like my visit, when I visited IU East, they played Huntington, and Huntington was going. So I remember that game for sure.
So when we played that game, that had Ben Hammerkaus, who's now playing at Illinois. Lane Sparks, who plays here. Zach Goodline, who is a graduate assistant for us here as well.
Okay.
A little bit of talent. Right?
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Billy, go ahead real quick.
Coach, I just want to circle back. Ty Harper, he played at the Masters. He played a couple other places too as well. And then you mentioned Lane Sparks, who just had a monster career with you at Huntington. Talk about the what do guys coming from a lower level coming into a place like Oral Roberts, what cultural and basketball stuff do they need to learn? What is that learning curve like for guys from smaller schools?
Yeah, so I would say there's no clear answer on that, because I think it really depends on the program you came from. And there's a lot of guys who, I mean, you can come from a high level Division I program and have bad habits, right? Or not have the right, I guess, practice habits. But for those two specifically, they're both emotionally mature. They're both now 22, 23 years old. They've been through the battle. Like Lane was at Huntington for his 4 years. Ty has had a journey at a couple Division I's, had 2 really successful years at Masters, and then played a great season last year at Youngstown State. And so they both have different journeys, but I think both have reached the point of they understand what it takes to win. They understand what it takes to get the most out of themselves. And they both are competitors. And I think you are trying now to get 15 young men to buy into a common goal. And the difference now is it is really a 12-month, 9-month process. And for this year, and obviously we're a new staff, and so we had to get 15 new players. We recruited 2 back from last year's team, but 13 incoming transfers. And so that's kind of the norm when you take over a new job. But what we had to do is what everybody is doing across the country. You've got top 5 teams in the country that have 10 transfers, right? And there's no more roster continuity. And if you can achieve roster continuity, it's a great thing. Like what Coach Painter has done at Purdue, incredibly unique and special, and part of why they've had such great success. Now they'll mix in transfers here and there, but his roster continuity has been, I'd say, second to none across the country with what they've been able. They're still taking guys and redshirting them and developing them. They've had a lot of hits in recruiting over the past 10 years. But there's so much now that is every spring in the transfer portal is a talent grab. And so whether you're looking small school, JUCO, international, high school, whatever they may be, they all are coming with their own sets of problems, experience, pros and talent that they can bring to the table. And so the difference now for us coaches is you got to figure that stuff out quick. You got to figure out what buttons to push for each guy. You got to coach every guy individually while holding to the same standard, but you have to figure out what those things are for each guy very quickly in a short amount of time. And I think that's the challenge that has gotten a lot harder over the last few years. But at the end of the day, it's the same, whether you've had a kid for 3 years or you've got a kid for the last 3 months. You're just trying to help bring out the best in him and try to help him buy into what you feel like as a coach the team needs to be its most successful.
Yeah.
You know, piggyback on that, right? With transfers, you got so many of them this year. Is there a playbook that you have to get to know these players, their families, to bring them in to be a lot, like you said, you don't have a lot of time and there's some swings and misses there. So what is Kory Alford doing to try and separate himself? And granted, you know, like at Huntington and now you're at Oral Roberts. What are you trying to do to separate yourself, to distinguish those players that you want to go there when you transfer because they have something, a secret sauce? Is there something that you're doing that maybe you may not want to share if coaches are watching, right?
No, I think it's the main thing is authenticity, right? And I think the whole part of college athletics that people don't like is that it's all become very transactional, right? I pay you, you come here, you give this, your production is this. If you're not getting that, you're gone. And at the end of the day, it's still a relationship business. And a lot of our recruiting connections and relationships are where we find out about kids or build relationships with kids. To your point about Ty Harper, obviously I got to watch him while he was at the NAIA, but we really got to know Ty and do our background on Ty through Troy Leaf, who was an assistant at Masters, who is the brother of TJ Leaf, who Corey Barnett and I both coached at UCLA. And so very close with the Leaf family. Through that, got really connected with Ty, built that relationship. Ty came out on the visit. We're trying to build a relationship in the first, in that 48-hour window when they're here on a visit. You get connected with as many people in the circle as you can in that 2-3 week span. And you try to do as much background and then connect as you can. But the biggest thing to me is then moving forward, how that looks. And so when I say authenticity, it is one, being honest about what it's going to look like when you get here, right? There's a lot of salesmanship in recruiting, but if it's not honest, it's not going to go well once you really start playing, right? If we promise minutes, if we promise starting, and that doesn't happen, then it's not going to go well for your culture. And that's why we don't ever do that. We are very upfront and honest that this is not going to be easy. We're going to coach you just like everybody else. You're going to have the opportunity to do X, Y, Z, but it's going to be on you to make the most of that. And I think the other side is like, once you leave here, whether that is a transfer after 1 year, whether that is you finish your career here, but continuing that relationship. And that's hard. It's difficult. There's some that are good situations, bad situations, but I think being approachable as a coach is a big deal. I think sometimes we all get lost in whether it's the ego or you're just so busy, you've got so many things going on. But sometimes these kids just need somebody to talk to and mess around with. And I think Coach Barnett does a phenomenal job of being very emotionally available and emotionally intelligent, that sometimes it doesn't need to be about basketball. Sometimes you got to just mess around and meet them. Again, I keep saying it, but meet them where they are, I think, is the main thing you've got to keep going back to. And you can hold young people to a standard and you can teach discipline while also making sure you are speaking their language and you are meeting them where they are and you're understanding where they're coming from and what they're going through, whether that's basketball or off the court stuff.
Coach, you want to go, Daryl?
Yeah, it was one more for me on that piece.
Go ahead.
One thing you would like to remove or take away from this newfound process, if it's NIL, if it's transfer portal, if it's agent piece, one thing that Kory would say, you know what, I would love to get rid of that.
That's a tough one. My main thing, I think it needs oversight.
Yeah.
It just needs some oversight, right? They let the genie out of the bottle, and now there's no going back. I think players deserve to be paid and compensated. I believe that players should be able to transfer. Now, do I think 3-4 transfers is good for the game of basketball, college basketball? No, right? I think if you gave everybody, and I'm really just making stuff up, but if you gave everybody one free transfer and then you're allowed to do a grad transfer thing like it used to be, I think that cleans it up a lot. From the NIL side, there's a lot of talk that the money will go down, that it's a bubble right now. To me, the biggest issue is that there's no regulation on any of it. And so what you have is you have people being lied to. You have players being lied to. And that goes to your point on agents. There's a lot of really good NIL agents. There's also a lot of random kids that are saying they're NIL agents, right? This is my buddy or my cousin and he's my agent. And you talk to him and you're like, oh my, what is this situation? And because of all of that, there's no continuity to anything. In the end, what it does is it hurts the players that get lied to. And if they don't have a contract in place, they don't have X, Y, like there's nothing they have to stand on. And you'll continue to see programs come out and it's like, yeah, they promised me this, I didn't get that, because it's that 2-week recruiting window and you're saying whatever it takes to get a kid there. And so from that standpoint, it's very, very messy. I hope it continues to get cleaned up. I do think college basketball and college football is in a really good place talent-wise. I think it's highly competitive. I think now all of the talent going to, I think the high major, and really we're talking Big Ten, SEC, like that separation is going to continue. Naturally, it's been in the works for a long, long time, right? And so I don't know what the future of college basketball looks like. I hope we can keep the NCAA tournament intact how it is for a long, long time. But the way the money is getting involved, it's interesting what the future is going to hold, because it is, especially from a football standpoint, those two leagues are at a different level of money, resources, TV revenue. It's not the same. And so eventually there's going to be some sort of reckoning with all of that. But again, I think you have to be very adaptable. So if you gave me one thing to change, I don't know that I could pick something. We have a lot of issues. We also have a lot of good things going for us. But we're going to try to find a way to adjust and operate within whatever the current structure and system is to put the best basketball team we can put forward at Oral Roberts here.
Good deal.
Coach, I'll go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's funny you say that. You know, we got that Alabama sweatshirt right there. When I was a young guy, I used to say Alabama could compete within the NFL team because they don't have a salary cap to deal with. But I didn't know I would live to see
watch
that.
Watch your tone, Bill. Watch your tone. You realize I can hear what you're saying, right?
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, whoever brought up the agents, I mean, there's a clip on Netflix of the SEC documentary, and Nussmeier and Brian Kelly have the same agent. So Kelly is negotiating with his own agent about his quarterback staying or leaving, and this was the year before this year. So I think, Daryl, you made a good point with the agents. But Coach, I wanted to bring up the X's and O's a little bit, because I've been to a couple IU East practices this year, and we talked to Coach Hester last week, and he said, we'll practice these sets all summer, all practice, and we may call them 2 or 3 times a game. how true is that for you at Huntington? How much would you guys work on these sets and try to execute these sets in game? Because a lot of it, I think defense is worked on a lot where we're at IU East and the offensive side of the ball. Yeah, they'll work on these sets, but a lot of the offense, it's more about reading what's going out on the court more than just going out there and calling a set every single play.
For sure. So I think there's obviously a lot of ways to do it. There's a ton of different coaching philosophies on both sides of the ball. For us, in the last 5 years at Huntington, it is ebbed and flowed. And I think the way that we've set up our playbook allows us to have the flexibility throughout the year to adapt to what your team looks like and what their strengths and weaknesses are. So we've had some teams where we've allowed more freedom, less set calling, less slowed down, play free. And then last year, for example, we really slowed everything down. I called more sets than I ever have in my whole career, probably. We had a new point guard. Zach Goodline had graduated. Mack Gadis is robotics, not the right word, but highly efficient, but he's going to make the right read. And so for him, allowing him to know what set we were running and why, knowing what the ABC read was. And then we had a couple bigs that were very good when you put them in sets and you told them screen here, roll here. That fit that team, right? This year at Oral Roberts, we are building towards more of a 5-out flow, heavy centric offense. Now we still have our sets that we'll mix in, but really trying to teach our guys how to play. And part of that too is we're on practice now. If you count the summer and the preseason fall, we're on practice 50, 55. Where at Huntington at this point, I was on practice 14, right? And so you have more time to teach 5-out flow. We're just now starting to be like, hey, we're starting to get it after 55 practices. Like that stuff takes a long time to teach and to implement. And I went down to a Thunder training camp about 2 weeks ago, and they made a point that I think they were going over one of their plays, right? One of their plays that they ran a lot, right? And they said they ran that play, I think it was like 280 times throughout the year, right? That was their top set, top action. And Coach Mark Dagenau was also saying, we have, in the season last year, we went against 8,000 closeouts, right? And we had 3,000 collisions, which is like two guys coming together and finding action. And so that's why we work on closeout attacks and work on reads within a ball screen or within a two-man action, because that is what is going to be 80-90% of the basketball game, right? So we can get cute with our ATOs, we can get cute with our sets, and yet it is a huge piece of the game, especially in the margins, right? You're trying to steal a possession here, steal a possession there, but the cornerstone foundation of your team is, do they know how to play, right? You can do shell drill, you can do schematically all the different things defensively on how to guard a ball screen, but if you aren't tough enough, if you don't sit down and actually guard your man, if you don't want to go get that loose ball, if you don't hit a man on a box out, if you don't do those things, it doesn't really matter if we're telling you how to X switch a ball screen and fly switch the weak side. Like none of that matters if your foundation isn't good. And the same thing's true on the offensive end, right? Do you know how to screen? Do you know how to cut? Do you know how to make a read on the defense? Do you know how to handle pressure and keep your head up as a point guard, right? All those things are what you're trying to build to. And then we can go in and run whatever the horn set is that we really like, and we can layer that as the year goes on. But it's an ebb and a flow, and every team is different on what it is. But that's our main philosophy. And so we're trying to continue to improve that. Like yesterday, we played against kind of a soft press for the whole game. And it took us out of our flow on what we really wanted to do, because it changed where our connectors started at on the floor, right? And so we got a little bit stagnant. Their pressure took us out of some stuff. And so in turn, we turned the ball over more, especially in the first half, right? And that's why you want to learn from those. And then you've got to also make sure that the guys are believing in what you're working on, right? They see how it benefits them. how it benefits the team, but more so like why we're doing it, right? A lot of kids these days, they require you to explain why. We've got some guys on our team, Ofri, who transferred with Coach Barnett from West Virginia. He asks me the best questions I've ever had asked from a player. Like, he gets me ready to teach the team because of his questions are so pointed, right? But you cannot just say like, set your screen this way because I told you so. Like, that doesn't work anymore. You got to say, here's how we're trying to set a back pocket screen and you're rolling to this point because it will allow for us to create an advantage so that you can play 4-on-3 on the backside, which will allow you to maximize your gravity XYZ. You're trying to show them how it will benefit them and the team on the backside. And we do that through film and numbers and then repetition on the court. And so all those things go into both sides of the ball. But I think, to answer your question on the offense, I think both are important. And you're always trying, that's the beauty of coaching. You're trying to balance your coaching equity and spend the time on what you need to spend time on without missing things that are going to cost you a game in the future.
And you said it right. The NAIA, you start later. D1, you start very early in the summer. You got way more practices. And I think one thing I've picked up at being at this level is you kind of use that preseason to figure out offensively, because what I've seen at IUE is there's a lot more work on the defensive side of the ball in the off season rather than the offense, and the offense is kind of tweaked throughout that preseason. Was that the same way for you at Huntington, where it was, okay, we really focus on defense, and then the offense we just continue to tweak through that preseason before we get to conference? Because obviously conference is where you can get that at-large bid if you win the conference tournament.
For sure. I think, yes, to answer your question, and I think offense is so much easier to tweak in season, right? Because again, like we just talked about, you can slow things down, you can speed things up, you can put a new offense in and be decent at it in a couple of days, right? Like, you can get the main concept. Guys know how to pass, dribble, and shoot, and I could put in flex tomorrow and we could run it in our exhibition on Friday, right? And defensively, though, it takes a long time to develop those habits and understanding just where the tag guy is, where the help's coming from, all the different things that the offense is trying to exploit. And so if you aren't ready defensively when that season starts, if you aren't ready through an October defensive, like, you're in trouble, because you won't get a practice in season and the way that you do in the preseason. And we had one year at Huntington that we were really struggling early on. It was our only bad non-conference we really had. And a lot of it was defensively. Like, we just weren't good defensively. We had a couple new guys that were transfers, and we started the season, I think, 2-4, 2-5. And we had never lost multiple non-conference games before. And so we're scrambling, trying to figure out what to do defensively, and tried all these things. That didn't work. And it led to that start. And really, it was because of defense. And we basically, it was like a December game against St. Francis. And it was basically like, look, we got to stop worrying about scheme. It's nothing about that. Like, you guys have to play harder and you have to play tougher and you've got to want it. And from that point, like, we figured things out. We figured out what we wanted to do defensively, offensively, whatever. And we won a lot of games from that, but we were scrambling there for 3 or 4 weeks because we just didn't have our defensive identity set. I'm sure Billy D was just killing us on the morning podcast.
He definitely was.
Guard. We lost again, but you know, we played in the locker room. We used Billy's words, and we fueled our comeback.
There you go.
The motivator. Motivator.
Daryl, Billy, I want to give you guys back the floor if you guys got any more questions.
I like to do mine at the end. I like to try to bring tears when I can. When I bring up personal stuff. So I'll let Billy go first. I'll try to bring tears if I can.
Well, this is a layup for you, Coach. You know, you've got a couple of Indiana guys. Alex Kudo, I don't know if I'm saying his last name right. He's from Carmel, which is just a basketball powerhouse there in Indiana. And then obviously you have Lane Sparks. Do you envision, both you and Barnett are Hoosiers, do you envision you're going to go up there and try to poach a few more of those Indiana high school players?
Absolutely. I think you've got different recruiting bases. Indiana is obviously a place that we're very well connected, and also a place that we really respect. not only the basketball, but the basketball coaching.
Yeah.
I think the high school basketball coaching in Indiana is second to none. And I think you see it in the amount of successful college basketball players that come out of the state. They shouldn't be in the conversation with the New Yorks and the Californias and the Texas, but like Indiana is. And a lot of that is from the passion, but also from the coaching that we have in the state. And so, yes, we'll obviously be continuing to recruit Indiana. I think Texas, Oklahoma is obviously a big base for us, and has been good for us to kind of start meeting people and understanding kind of what the grassroots looks like out here over the past spring and summer. But yeah, Indiana will always be a foundational recruiting base and place that we continue to go back to regularly.
Yeah.
So mine is this, we talked a little bit before we went live about, your upbringing, right? And who your dad is. And what I want to know is, it's all great. You say, I've got this person in my life that people are familiar with. I want to hear about the things that you went to school and said, man, I don't know if I like this or not. I'm being, these things are being brought to me about, my dad and his coaching prowess, good, bad, or indifferent. I want to hear a couple of those things that kind of maybe woke you up and said, this is the real world, versus, when you're kind of at home, you're sheltered and you don't see it until you get out that door and you see what some people really think and what they feel and say about you from a personal perspective, growing up in that family.
Yeah. So I think all of those things have really shaped who I am as a person, and kind of my worldview. And I think, luckily I've had great mentors, my dad, grandpa included, my mom, grandparents, everybody just growing up, and certain people that I've leaned on. But my family's been in the spotlight for my whole life, right? And my dad being who he has been in a different spotlight, but been in that since he was 18, 19 years old. And I think because of that, he has a understanding of like what that pressure is, and he's been able to channel that throughout his whole life. I think for me, my dad and I are very different personalities. He is much more type A, much more serious, I guess is a good word for it. But he's also much more guarded out in public because of naturally what he's grown up in, right? You understand he grew up in a fishbowl in Newcastle, and was playing in the Olympics at age, 19. Naturally, he has a guarded personality publicly. And then once you get to meet him, it's a whole different person, right? And so for me, I grew up in, we lost 3 games in a row. I've got kids or teachers saying stuff to me, right? And there's a time when that can be hurtful. You can let that get to you. But I think for me, I was able to channel that into, one, what really matters, understanding that, one, winning is hard, 2, with the opportunity and the responsibility of being a coach, those things are part of it, right? It is what it is. You are not going to rationalize with a fan, right? Fans, that's what a fan is. A fan is a fanatic, right? You got upset by a tiny comment Billy said about Alabama football, right?
I got him after the call too. Don't worry, there's more coming.
You know what I'm talking about? It's an irrational love of a team. That's what a fan is, right? Yeah. And that's okay, right? You don't need to take it personally. All those people that are saying those things about you, that are on a message board talking about XYZ, like, for me, I always liked reading all of it. I like seeing all of it. Like, it's interesting, but like, don't take it personally. I knew growing up who my dad was. I knew the work that my dad and his staff was doing, right? And I mean, it's the man in the arena, right? It's not the critic who counts. Like, lean back on that quote. Like, that is, it's the idea that we have continued to live throughout. Like, we're blessed. I get to coach basketball for money, right? I wear sweats to work, right? I get to wear shorts for a majority of the year. I get to go play in a basketball gym and coach games. The worst thing that can happen in a game is you lose the game, right? Like that is such a blessing. Like that's incredible.
Yeah.
It's the greatest. You talked about all the places I've lived, all the people I've met through a game of basketball, right? Like it's not that serious. And fans will get to you. It is part of it. But at the end of the day, like you got to have perspective on what's really important. And we have a platform as coaches to impact young people. And we get to compete and try to build a program that wins games for a living. Like that is incredible. And we have countless stories of young people that have used the game of basketball to get a degree, get a job, become better men, become better fathers. Like that is what we all lean back on at the end of the day. And that's what makes whatever a fan says, whatever every single person on my staff has been, on our staff here has gone through a firing. Coach Barnett and I were both fired at UCLA at a very young age, right? It's part of it. And you either let that get to you, you either you can be sad, whatever, but like that's one, it's part of the business, but two, it should just make you better. Every game you lose should make you better. Every point of adversity should make you better. And I think if you can just keep that perspective, and no matter what you do in life, I think you'll be better for it. And I think the game of basketball has provided the platform and the framework for me in my life to be able to see that clearly. And so I'm very, very thankful for that.
One of the things that a great coach I heard say some time ago says, as a fan, you get upset about your team losing a 2-point game, but you have no idea the pain those players have because they're the ones who went to the practice at 6 a.m. They're the ones living it, dealing with it on that game-by-game basis. And one of the things that was said was fans just will never understand that life. And I think you kind of shared a little bit of that about putting it in perspective. And like you talk about reading the message boards. That's my fuel, right? You probably use it as fuel. Said, I'm going to continue to work better to be the best, Kory Alford I can be and in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and I think to your point, like it's every locker room I've been in, when you lose, that feeling is brutal.
Yeah.
Right? It hurts, especially the last one of the year.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the worst speech I ever had to give was that last speech. And you don't plan for it because you're hoping you win that game and you get to go play the next week. So you got to sit there and you got to go through it all.
Yeah.
But like that's the blessing. Right? Because we love it, because we love the journey, because you put that much work in, that's why it hurt.
Yeah.
And that's why those moments are so hard. But you got to understand, not everybody gets that.
Yeah.
Not everybody gets the opportunity to feel that. And that's real, raw emotion. And it also comes with a bond with the people in that room, right? Whenever those losses happen, whenever that end of season happens and you're with those 20 young men, like we put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get to this moment. And some of it is highs and lows. Like some of it is highs. You get great wins. There's nothing like that. You get a big road win. You get a tournament win. Like all those things, there's nothing like that. And on the flip side, you got heavy, heavy losses that weigh on you, that you go over every single possession on. Should I have done this? Should I have done that? Right. And I don't know what other career I would do that can replicate that emotion in me. Because I'm not a super emotional person, but man, I love competing in college basketball games more than anything. And so I am very, very grateful that I get to do this.
Best dad moment, you and your dad, man. And you don't, if you can share, one of those you had those days, and there's no one you could lean on other than dad. And I'm a dad of 3 boys myself. There's times he's the only one. So give me a best dad moment that you can share with some of our listeners and kind of get that perspective of Kory Alford and his dad, Steve.
For sure. I think the big things with my dad, it's always been around competition. We love golf. Me and my brother and dad love golf. I haven't gotten to golf very much this year with the new job. It's been the only frustrating part of moving here. We've got too much stuff to do. But honestly, I go back to some of the big wins coaching with him. It was so much fun being on his staff, and just to name a couple, but winning at Kentucky.
Yeah.
Right. You got 24,000 people in there.
Yeah.
And they're ranked whatever they were. We were top whatever. And just like the amount of fun that memory is. And again, all the work that goes into it. Right. Yes, the game happened on CBS and we played for 2 hours. But the lead up to that, the ups and downs, the year before having a very disappointing season. Right. Going through that off season with that staff, with my dad, but like developing a plan of how are we going to get better. And yes, so that one game signifies a fun moment and a fun win. But there was so much more to that. And so I was on his staff for 6 years, and it was a blessing to work with him. And I think we both made each other much better coaches, and as well as people. But I would say my favorite moments now are just seeing him with my son Kai, seeing him as a grandpa and what my son calls Baba Ball. Seeing him mess around and play Baba Ball with Kai is certainly special.
Good deal. I like that. That's good stuff. We talked about the Kentucky game earlier. Matter of fact, was that Lonzo's big game, if I remember right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then we played him again in the Sweet 16, unfortunately. But
we won't talk about that. We won't talk about
that. Highs and lows. Highs and lows.
Yep, exactly.
As we start to wrap up here, I don't have any more questions. I kind of got my questions out of the way there. Billy, Daryl, if you guys got any more to kind of wrap things up, fire away.
Just real quick, I want to thank Coach Alford for setting up a great tournament that I'm heading out, I think, in about a week. We're going to somehow struggle without you. Coach Yock's going to carry on. But just if people are listening, the GPAC schools, Morningside and Briarcliff, are going to head out to Indiana. We're going to play at Grace one night, go up to Huntington. I get to go into the Platt Center for the first time. But, Coach, I want to thank you for help setting that up. And just keep an eye on Billy D's page, and you'll see what happens up there.
There's no doubt. I'll still follow you, Billy, and I'll listen to any of the coaches you interview, except for Coach Moore. I'm sick of talking to Coach Moore. That one I will skip, but that event is going to be awesome. I'll definitely be tuned into that. It'll be fun. 4 good teams and back-to-back days and 2 great arenas at Grace and Huntington. I think really cool, and it's before we even start over here, so that timing works out great.
Coach, I do got one more question. NBA wise, who are you excited to watch this year? You know, maybe not from a fan perspective, but just a team that that made some improvements that you enjoy watching overall.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the Thunder, what they've been able to build down there is kind of insane, and they're built for the future, both talent wise, but most importantly, culture. Like what they have, you step into that building, you feel it top down. Just kind of what they've been able to achieve is really cool. We've molded a lot of our offense this year around the Pacers from last year, and then Alabama. It's kind of a hybrid of the two. And so obviously the Pacers will look different without Halliburton, and it'll be interesting to see what that kind of looks like. But there's a lot of players and teams I enjoy watching in the league. Obviously Jokic and Wemby are 2 of the more unique players in the history of this game of basketball. And I just think those are 2 fascinating players to watch. Jokic has the craziest gravity of any player I've ever seen. You just have to throw him the ball, and it's like you ran some action. Right? It is different, right? It is nothing like I've ever. It's literally like Shaq was, but Shaq was only in the post. Joker, it doesn't matter where you throw him the ball, right? He can. Is like that. And so, and then Wemby, if he stays healthy, like that's the MVP in 2 years. So we'll see, but it'll be fun. I love the NBA, but I'm most excited for college basketball. That's one part of being back at the Division I level, just having the access to all the data that we have too. I was doing a lot of in-house tracking at the NAI level, and I think we did a really good job. But there are so many databases for us now that get it done at the click of a button. And so that's going to be fun as the season starts up for us.
Awesome. Daryl, any final thing?
No, I was going to make sure you did say the Pacers because we are Pacers fans. So listen, that's why I said you're welcome back. You're a Hoosier, man. You know, you mentioned the Pacers, you coach in Huntington. You're always welcome to come back home because I know there's going to be a time where it's going to be head coach again. And I don't need you to name names, but take a look at the state of Indiana. That's some good spots. Just letting you know.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and you can stay at Scott Moore's house.
Yeah.
Well, that is going to do it, Coach. It was awesome having you on, our first D1 coach. I was very excited for this interview. Like I said, we had this probably done in about July, and I was like, I don't want to get you mixed up with all the NFL and the college football we've been talking about the last couple weeks. I wanted to wait till we got closer to basketball, so it was awesome to have you on. Folks, this wouldn't be possible without our sponsor, Mack Gadis, our local State Farm Air Insurance agent. So once again, thank you for Mack Gadis for helping us with some upgrades and getting us to this very point. And then once again, thank you to Billy D of Cascade Hoops Talk. His links will be in the description on X and YouTube. He will be continuing to cover NIA basketball at the highest level. He's helped us get a couple interviews as well. So always a big thank you to Billy D. But folks, that is going to do it. Make sure you check out me and Daryl later. We'll be talking college football, but that's going to do it for us, folks. We'll see you next time right here on the Game Time Podcast.